Welcome to another episode of the Great Work Launchpad. My name is Chris Nelson. My site is evolveconsciousness.org. And this is episode... Oh, damn. I closed the window. What is it? 29? 30. Episode 30. Shadow Work 28. Fear or Love 13. Excuses 2. All right. Hey, Brandon. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
All right. And I made that infographic that you had like the idea of last week there.
Sweet.
Yeah. So, got a tree. Brandon was like, anyone ever see a picture of like the great work on top and the shadow work on the bottom? And I was like, I think I have from Passio. And I didn't go looking for it. But then he explained it and I was like, yeah, maybe I haven't seen that. And maybe I can make it. So I made it. And there it is. So I use that as the title card or thumbnail for the episode, yeah. So the Great Work Launchpad. We got topics to talk about related to getting people launched into the great work. That's what the goal of this podcast is to get people launched like a rocket, light a fire under their ass. And that's why, my outro
is in such a fucking hellhole, huh? How about trying to get out there and do the actual great work so this world is in such a fucking hellhole, huh?
So that's how I end the show. I like to play it, so I played it here just to emphasize the lighting of fire. Inspirational words from Mark Passio that might not want to hear, but you might need to hear. And that's that fire that can get a kick under your tush and light a fire under your ass to motivate you. So, if you're thinking about it, you have the knowledge, but you're not doing anything, not talking about what you know. You're not doing the wisdom part. It's only staying inside of you. You need some motivation, some help, some easing into the work. You can come on here, talk about a topic, talk about what we're talking about, first of all. And if you want an avenue to write something or help on figuring out how to get started, I recommend writing as the way. That's how I started, and it's easier. You can take your time. There's no pressure to talk about something in the moment. So, over time you can accumulate the knowledge so that you can be more equipped in a rhetorical capacity to speak on subject matter on hand. And you can start off by getting that knowledge by writing about it, taking the time. And I forget the exact phrase, but to know something, you teach it, something like that. And so that helps when you want to teach about it, then you're going to learn it better. So that's my spiel for the Great Work Launchpad. And we'll get into it. Talking about excuses for not doing the great work. So that's what we were talking about last week. And people focusing on mediocre things or trivial things in life. They don't have a higher purpose, higher meaning. So in general, that's what we are searching for. It's something that you could say that we yearn for, and really speaks to the core of our being when we fill in a purpose or a meaning. And there's an objective one that applies to everyone when we understand how we relate to freedom and our responsibility in that equation to create freedom. And so that objective purpose is the great work to bring about the restoration of freedom and our part, each individual's part in doing that. And the other stuff is like, well, I'm going to be a policeman. I'm going to be a soldier. I'm going to go work for government. I find great meaning. They give you something to belong to, something that's greater than yourself. So when you do the great work, you belong to something greater than yourself. You belong to an ongoing chain of causality that's, it's about the care for everyone, agape, true care, and trying to bring about freedom for everyone. And it's goes through generations. And when you have a proxy for that, substitute it with something that's on its face, it looks good, and that's how the evil masquerades. Evil veils itself through the illusion of things that are good. So it pretends to be good, and that's why people want to feel like they belong to something. It's part of our psychology, why we are social beings. And another dimension to that is to belong to something bigger than yourself. And the greatest thing you can have as part of your identification is objective morality and true freedom. But the substitutes for that will sell you false freedom and false good and false morality. So yeah, I guess I interjected that there. That's related to the meaning and the purpose and how we're conditioned into false ways that can lead us astray, and how we're not advancing the true cause, the cause of true freedom or justice. And when you're not doing the great work, you're not actually doing that. So you might have a lot of knowledge, you might know it backwards and forwards, up and down, but if you're not doing that great work, then you're just accepting to not be a participant in that great endeavor, that long chain of causality of, at the moment it's minimal input. If we had more people inputting themselves into that causal dynamic to affect change in the world, then we might actually get it done. But that takes a lot more people getting involved in doing it. So that's what we're trying to get at, and that there's requirements. You have a goal, true freedom. What are the requirements? The great work. How do you do the great work? There's requirements to do that as well. And that's what we're talking about here, is excuses for not in fulfilling the requirements to do the great work, to then be able to create true freedom. So last week we ended with talking about fears about personal characteristics, things that you feel you or think or believe or could be true that you don't have enough of, and how you can overcome those limitations. And that again this underlying theme that we'll get into eventually, about sacrifice, that you'll have to sacrifice doing something that you're doing now. Your life is full, you got stuff, you're busy, you want to relax, you watch TV or movies. You got to sacrifice one of those things somewhere in order to redirect and channel your energy, your time and attention, these spiritual currencies, into either learning it, into developing the skills, developing the things that you think you lack or that you actually lack, or overcoming those fears. And then you won't have that as an excuse of not having enough of whatever quality, characteristic, attribute, or aspect about yourself. Another one is skill sets, how you don't know how to do whatever. You don't know how to do X. Some skill or technology, you don't know how to write. Oh, I was never good in language arts or English school, English class, so I don't know how to write properly. I don't know how to do audio. I've never spoken into a microphone. I don't own a microphone. Or you can buy a microphone. You can learn to do it. You start off crappy. You get better at it. You can probably take course on rhetoric, how to be a better orator, or you can just develop it by using it. That's like how essentially any muscle works. Well, it's the same principle. The more you use it, the more you're going to understand how it works and develop a refined capacity to use it more effectively. That's what muscles are. Learn to use your muscles, learn to do a sport. You get better at it, get better at a technique, lift stronger, so you get better at speaking, better at writing, video editing, can be crap at it. You can learn how to do that. All these are skills that you might not know how to do right now, but you can develop it. Like public speaking, you can even do public speaking, have shyness or stage fright or whatever. Those things can be overcome as well. Those are psychological limitations that you can overcome. Or if you're not organized and you're disorganized and everything's chaos around you and you're just like it's a mess everywhere and inside your computer, it's like just stuff, everyone puts everything on their desktop, so it's like a big mess. And so these are organizational skills where you can figure out, you organize aspects of your environment. Like the computer is kind of like an extension of ourselves, you know. It's an extension of our minds, I guess you could say, in the way we think about things. Well, then we can organize our computer as a somewhat of a reflection that mirrors our internal state of how we like to maybe organize our thoughts. So there's like a loose connection there about that association that we can make. And so all these things are excuses. If you're using one of these as a reason to not get started because, oh, well, I don't know how to do whatever, well, these are just excuses. And if you even tell yourself that it's not achievable, oh, well, I don't know how to do it, and I can't learn that, well, that's some bullshit that you're telling yourself, that you can't learn it, because you can learn it. It's just a lie that you're using to hold on to as a crutch so that you don't have to actually invest your time and energy in learning and developing the skill that you're lacking, so that then you can take your time and energy into doing the work rather than not, because you want your selfish life. People just want their selfish lives to live, and that's pretty much what a lot of this boils down to, is just people they want their selfish lives to live. They just want their damn selfish lives to live, and they don't want to do it for anything greater than themselves, because they're not going to get money back from it. You know, when you go into government or military or police, oh, you're joining something bigger than you, you're going to do good in the world. Yeah, and you're getting a paycheck. How many people would be doing those jobs if there wasn't a paycheck? So there's always this selfish motivator. When you're doing the great work, we talked about it like 2 or 3 episodes ago. Maybe it was the last one. I forget. But I was talking about how, you know, for me and other people, we do have a selfish aspect, because we want for ourselves, we want to be more moral. We want to be the most moral we can be. And we don't want to be enslaved. We want to have more freedom. So yeah, it takes time and attention if you want to learn, and you are able to learn. It is a possibility for you to do. So you got to stop lying to yourself about things that you're viewing as limitations, limiting factors, and realize that it takes time and attention and patience and persistence. You got to keep doing it. You got to practice. You got to have patience, because you're not going to get it the first time. You're going to have to learn more as you go. But you can learn. But if you don't take the time to learn, then you stay where you are, and you're using all these things as excuses to not move forward. So you're just going to stagnate. And that's in that involutionary force. Hence why this is part of fear or love. That fear dynamic has to do with the involutionary force. That stagnation is part of that involutionary force. It's not on the active side of the active involutionary force, but it's in the passive involutionary force. That's why it's stagnation, because you're stagnating and you're letting things be, letting evil be, and you're not moving things forward towards the evolutionary, syntropic, ordering, moral, good, right side. So maybe you're not going to be doing that quality as good as someone else, and you could use that as another reason. Oh, even if I do learn this, well, I won't be writing as good as this person. I won't be speaking as good as this person. My videos won't be good as this person. Whatever you can think of, not as good as whoever you can think of. So that might be another reason you have maybe low self-esteem. You need to work on that. Like, oh, you're not going to be as good as someone else. So what? You can still get to a place where you can do that thing, where you can gain that skill and you can use it to do the great work and not keep leaning on that as an excuse to not get started. So even though, okay, it could be shit. All right, could be, maybe not, maybe it will be. Don't look at it as it's just gonna be shit. No, maybe it could be, but even from that shit, you can make it less shit and make it better. So I'll pass it to you, Brandon. I don't know who the mystery person is, but they've showed up, but they're not there.
It's Fiona. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
is it?
She put in the
Ah,
in the chat. It's
okay. Yeah, I
Fiona.
never have the chat open. I'm bad with that.
But great points. And you brought up skill sets, and it's crazy because we live in this age of technology, and people think we're getting so advanced and we are so evolved, but when it comes to actual practical skill sets, we are lacking in those departments. Like when it comes to just like basic survival, like skill sets and technological skill sets. But you would think that people would be wanting to learn more when it comes to these technological skill sets, considering we have access to the internet, and we have like access to all this technology now, monitors, fast desktops, have laptops that are extremely fast. You can get up to like 120 plus gigabytes of RAM. We got fast freaking SSDs. You can store knowledge. Now you can store more knowledge than like 20 years ago. So you would be thinking that people would be, trying to grasp these skill sets and take advantage of all these, like online courses, because there are a lot of free, courses. There are a lot of paid courses. There are a lot of, like how-to videos. There are a lot of books. There is a lot of information online when it comes to like actual practical skill sets when it comes to, like doing this kind of work. So it just gets down to that point, is why aren't people taking advantage of these tools? Why aren't people, like jumping on this knowledge to actually, hone these skill sets which are needed when it comes to putting out this kind of information? It all boils down to fear, fear. And how, like you say it, because you haven't given yourself to that higher purpose, that truly doing the great work for doing trying to bring about true good, true morality, true freedom, um and that objective purpose, then that fear mindset is going to always prevent you from moving to that stated goal. So these skill sets are required, and again, all of these excuses that are preventing people from jumping and using these skill sets. And I know because that's where I was when before I started doing all this stuff. I wasn't as good. I produce shit, because when you start off doing something new, it may not be the best. Like Chris said, it may be shit, but it's something for you to work on, something for you to hone on. Just like sharpening a knife. It's gonna be dull, but you put pressure, you put work, you put force on it to sharpen that blade, to sharpen that knife. Pressure, work, have sacrifice, care, have dedication, force, and eventually that blade, it'll start to sharpen. It'll get sharp. And when you are working on your craft, the more and more you do it, the more and more knowledge you take in, the more and more how better you will get at it. And then you practice. Some things may not work out. That's totally fine. More new information comes in and you work with that. And you're always willing to learn. You're always willing to learn more and get better at, at your craft. Because these skill sets have required, man. They are required.
Right on. Yeah, you can gain more skill sets, but you can start somewhere. Everyone should know how to write, even if you didn't do good in English class. I'm pretty sure you know how to write. Or okay, you don't want to do something like that and more basic, more thorough, and not time intensive. Well, think of something to say, and then you turn your phone on and record it and then upload it, and that's like even easier. But it might not be as well organized, maybe organize your thoughts first. There's always somewhere you can start with what you have and grow from there. So I wonder, is Fiona there? Are you there? All right, well, come back whenever you're there. Let us know.
Oh, she says she's here. She said it in the chat.
No, you're not audible. So you were muted like a bit, and then I see the red X on your microphone and is gone. But yeah, there's no audio coming through. So maybe check your audio settings. Maybe you didn't choose the right thing. All right. So Fiona's going to rejoin, and I'll continue with the next fear. So by the way, these, like, a lot of this stuff is coming from Mark Passio's work, the podcast. You know, people who are familiar with it, they can tell. So this one's like at 241, 242, something like that, where he went into some aspects of shadow work related to the fears we have in doing the work. So the next one is fear about losing worldly attachments. So this is a big one too, because there's so much we can be attached to, that we identify with, that we have connection to, that we relate to. And then you don't want to lose that thing that you identify with, because in some way it gets, the idea of it or the relation becomes absorbed into your sense of self, into how you view yourself, your self-view. So that can even relate to
Hey, can you hear me
worldviews.
now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, perfect. I'm so sorry. I had not selected the right audio setting. I believe it's working now. Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Hey,
Hey.
Yes, please. So, I don't know. I don't have much to weigh in, but let me know if you need my comments or my thinking on anything, my opinion. I'm here, all for the cause.
all right. Well, yeah. Did you hear the first part? Did you have anything to say about fears of skills?
The skills about writing, you mean?
Well, anything, a skill that you don't have that you're using as someone could be using as a reason to not get started because they don't have the skill, and then they just
Yeah,
never
maybe.
move on from there.
Yeah, maybe they lack the will. I have definitely been an individual who obviously nobody learns from birth. Um, and, well, it's debatable. There are genetically modified, but we're not talking about those. Those who are like underground black experiment stuff, smart soldiers they call it. No, people are not born talented, they learn it, they excel it, they like a field and they like to pursue. So I was, well, to start with, in my country it's a big fuss, over speaking in English and conducting yourself, the body language and your presence and stuff. But I was persistent. I was in fourth grade is when I got to know that English has substantial value, and I became a fan of Enrique, and I was like, who is this guy? I love that music. And some, we call them Bhaiya, elder brother. Like, he was very elder to me, and he was playing that song. So I asked, like, what is this? What are you listening to? I love the music. He said he's a musician, he's a singer, and his name is Enrique Iglesias, and that's a song. I was like, that's marvelous, but I can't sing it. Why can't I sing? He said, because he's singing in English. I was like, okay. He said that in our country we speak in Hindi, but in America, and well, it's a global language now. Everybody speaks, most of the people speak English. And I was like, I better learn it. I love the music. I can't sing along. Like, that's terrible. And you won't believe I picked up a Renan Martin on my own. I was a fifth, sixth grader by then. I had this passion for learning on my own. So, right after from my school, I would come back home, finish my homework so that I have enough time to practice English. And then I learned grammar and then pronouns, synonyms, antonyms, and how can I increase my vocabulary, the accent. And I used to sing along even if I used to screw up the lyrics, but I used to do that. And I became popular in my school because I was good in English and on my own. Okay. So, yes, definitely, to add to your point, you are right. Somebody who wants to learn will have to have the will. If you don't have the will, you're just going to sit on your bum the whole day. You would waste time. You would find reasons not to. There's a very popular saying in our country. We say, to do something, you just do it. And to not do something, you have a thousand reasons not to. But to do is just one, that you want to do it. End of story. So it's simple as, if I want tea and I'm out of tea leaves, well, I better get myself out of my house, buy a tea bag, and make tea, have tea. End of story. But if I'm not doing it, that means I don't really want tea. I am maybe showcasing that I like tea, but I don't like it enough to work for it. So there's nothing that we can't do. I was like, I was kind of a beat down student. I'm kind of a loner, on my own. And I had like serious trust issues ever since I was a kiddo. But, so that's why I would be on my own. And I had this skill that I want to be independent. I don't want to ask you or ask her or even the teacher. I used to do it on my own. And I eventually got myself from an average student to someone who was competing with the top scorers. So if I could do it, I mean, come on, I'm from the streets. Like, I haven't had the best of education, no public school. I went to government schools, but then see, I had it in me, and I conquered. So I would definitely side with what you're saying. It's, as long as you want it, you will do it. Definitely. Sorry, I kind of go off track. It's a part of me. Please excuse me. Thank you.
All good. You bring up a good point about schooling and being forced to learn things versus, as you were talking about, you had a drive to learn, and that's because it's something that you wanted to do. And when you want to do something, then you're interested in it and you will direct your time and attention towards it. Because if you're not interested in it, well, why would you put your time and attention into it unless you're getting something else that you're interested in? And for a lot of people, that's what they do with their jobs. They might not like their jobs, but they're already invested in the past with time and attention in order to have developed some skill that got them the job. And so now they're like, okay, well, I got to learn something else. So they'll learn something. They'll invest that time and attention to upskill, and it's not something they're actually interested in itself, but they're interested in a peripheral aspect, in something related to it in terms of what they can get as a result of learning that. And you can look at it this way with all this information about objective morality, natural law, psychology, philosophy, shadow work, all these other things. You could like look at it as like you're not even really interested in that, but what you are interested in, what you do want, is true freedom. What you want is to no longer be enslaved.
Exactly.
And as a result, you can have a drive to learn these things and put in the time and the attention to learn them and then teach them. Not because you're necessarily interested in it for itself. It's not one of your interests, but it's related as a requirement to something that you do want. So just like a job with money, you got to learn this to get the money. Well, you want the freedom, you want to not be enslaved, you got to learn this to get to that point. So that was a good thing that you interjected, and I just wanted to relate it in that way, that
Yes.
that's the best way to learn is things that you are interested in. And I think that's how most of us got here, even before we understand like the law of freedom, that we're interested in figuring out what's going on. So that's why we spent time to learn all these things, and from whatever teachers out there who did did invest the time and attention to create some works of their own that we learned from. All that stuff was self-directed learning because we were actually interested in it. And when it comes to the great work, you might not be interested in doing it, but look at it as the reward at the end. And yes, I've talked about how the reward, you're not likely going to get it. So I guess here's a shitty analogy. It's like a job you work at that you only get paid if like over 50% of the people are doing the job or something like that. So like, are you going to get paid? Probably not, because you need 50% of the people to get it. So it's like a shitty analogy, but that's how you got to look at it, because you're not going to get paid, probably.
Yeah.
But in the future, someone could get paid down the line. A bunch of people could get paid down the line thanks to the work that you put out now. So anyways, it's a crappy analogy, but that's how I could relate it. So I was talking about fear of losing worldly attachments. These things that we're attached to, that we identify with, that we have connection to. So it could be people, it could be a job, could be information, could be a worldview, the way you view the world. So you can be attached to ideas, and a lot of them are more highly valued, and we have a fear of losing those things. So that's relationships, our friends, our spouses, could be children, our parents, where you could talk about something and fear how they're going to react, or you already know that they're going to react negatively, so you don't want to talk about these things, you don't want to do the work, you don't want to put your work out there in case they come across it online and then they're going to see it and they're going to be like, oh my God, what is you? I'm going to disown you or something. Or, you could have all these fears of what's going to happen. And obviously the career or your job, fear of losing your job, you're going to put it out there. Oh, someone's going to find it, and then they're going to tell your employer, and then your employer is going to see it, and they're going to be like, oh, well, you're too radical with your ideas, and I don't want you to work for me. And well, then that's tied to fear of not having money. All this is tied to survival, fear of survival, which is a very primal fear that we have. So that money, that career, and, that's also tied to your house, your home. Where do you live? Well, how do you live there? Well, it takes money to live there. And how do you get your money? Well, you have a job. So all these things are linked, and that's your survival. And then if you don't have a job, you don't have money, and you don't have a house, well, how's your life? And you're like, oh, I'm going to die. I don't have anywhere. I don't have a way to make food. I'm not going to eat. I'm going to die. So that's really getting down to the fears related to survival when we're talking about these things that we're attached to. Yes, we're attached to our lives and we do need them, but we're afraid of losing them, and we associate a potential, probable, or maybe even unlikely loss of that thing if we speak out, because people won't like what we're saying, and then they'll cut us off from them, cut us off from the job, and then that cascades into no job, no money, no house, and then, oh my God, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
So if you lose that, would you be losing something that's real, as in genuine and authentic? So about your life, sure, it's real. And then we can get into the aspect of an authentic life and a genuine life. Self-examined life is not worth living, allegedly attributed to Socrates, I think. So that deals with, you got to do the shadow work. You got to gain that self-knowledge. You got to have this higher purpose that we're talking about here, this higher meaning. And that's when it's more of a genuine, authentic life, because you're genuine when you're saying, oh, are you being genuine with me? Well, that relates to when you're saying, is someone being genuine with you? Are they being honest with you? Are they being truthful to you? So genuine relates to truth. So when you're having that higher purpose related to truth, that's when you're more in that authentic living. You're truly being authentic and real. So part of the problem is this fear of not having an authentic connection to begin with. And we're fearing that thing. And, Pascal's talked about the only real relationship, and I've talked about it in my earlier work in different ways, where Relationships are built on what we don't say to each other. They're
Yes.
maintained by what we don't say. So we don't speak the truth. We don't say things that we could believe they're true and they could be wrong, but we're trying to not rock the boat. We're trying to keep the peace. We're trying to maintain those connections, those relations. So these relationships are built on what we don't say more than what
Right.
we do say. So
Mm.
that's a negative aspect of the apophatic pathway.
Exactly.
So these inauthentic connections, the only authentic one is you have people who develop that true care for truth,
Mm.
and they're connected to truth in an imaginary way there, but it's like, when you're connected to truth and you're connected to truth and you both value truth and that's part of your core values and how you live an
Yes.
authentic life, then you're going to have a connection that's more authentic because of that care for truth and that commonality of wanting to be a servant of truth. So when the other person's not jointly connected to truth, or their job is not morally aligned, it's morally misaligned, like working for government or police or military or even medicine. There's another one where people think like, oh, I'm going to be something part of greater than myself, something where I'm going to do good, and then they get stuck in the whole authority aspect of it, of these procedures and protocols. Because what's a protocol? When you follow protocol, you become a C3PO protocol droid, because that's what he is. I'm C3PO. I am a protocol droid, because they follow protocols. And that's what happened in COVID. There's all these stories you can look into about following protocols. You don't analyze and assess an individual's certain medical condition and look at ways that can benefit them through treatments, even if they're not approved. No. You follow the protocol, and then you assist in killing them quicker by putting them on ventilators, because that's the protocol. And that's your job. And if you don't do your job, well, you're not going to make that money. So remember, you got to keep that money, you got to keep that job, keep that money, keep that house, and keep your life. And the other person's life and what you're supposed to be doing, well, that didn't matter as much because you had to keep your job and your stuff going, because it was all about your selfish life that you want to live. So you could be doing wrong and you don't want to know or admit that you're doing wrong. And a lot of people are like that. A lot of people are still like that. They don't want to know that they're doing wrong. And if it gets brought up to them, then they don't want to admit it. And it's like total denial, ignorance, willful ignorance, rejection of the truth, and denial. So you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. But you want to hold on to that falsity, because again, there's these reasons behind it. It's your source of money, your source of survival. That's how you're going to maintain your life, maintain the things you have, all these attachments to, could be physical things, the things in your house, the cars, and etc. You don't want to have to look for another job and then not pay a mortgage and then have to find something else and get into bankruptcy or something. So there's all these reasons to not let go of the falsity. So people get entrenched in ego calcified, ego personality identity attachment to this thing that they value so much as part of their identity, as part of how they view themselves, that the ego is, their sense of I themselves is preventing them from aligning more with truth. So they remain aligned with falsity and they won't let go. They won't engage in a process of detachment. So they hold on to immorality for that money, for that survival, for that security, or even for some, it's for the prestige of the position that you've gained and the notoriety and the respect you've garnered as being a top in this field, in this medical, this whatever, MD, the surgeon of whatever capacity, or however you want to look at it, or in a certain job, and you've worked to get where you are and you've climbed the ladder, and you risk throwing it all away. So again, that's tied to the investment you've made in building up your identity and how you view yourself on that rung and your accomplishments. And you don't want that taken away, because again, that's all usually with certifications and an authoritarian framework where that authority, which is what happens in the medical industry, where if you go against it, they remove your medical license because you do not follow protocol, because you're trying to do things the way you think, and you're judging for yourself what is right or wrong. So you're trying to exercise your conscience, and then they can take that all away from you because you're not doing what they want. And there's the problem with authority in any field. So I'll pass it around before continuing and see if you guys have some input to add.
Yeah, I'll jump on something real quick. You talked about the fear of you know of losing loved ones, or fear of being kicked out of the group. Something that Pastor has talked about, you know, a lot. But yes, there is some truth, and there is some survival in groups. But when you look at in the animal kingdom, when the lions are going to hunt, they always pick off the one that strays away from the group. So it's always kind of you know um kind of similar to this when it comes to how the conditioning is another aspect of the conditioning, with the whole cult mentality and the whole collectivist mentality is there's strength in the group. Like going hell against the group is dangerous, going against the group is death. So how the conditioning is there. And the fear of hell abandonment, because being exercised from the group, it's like being kicked out of the house, held by your parents. No one wants to experience that because it is, hell traumatic. So in that fear, we'll still kowtow, like we'll go along to get along, we'll turn a blind eye. So these fears are there because that's what comes along, with this conditioning, like taking advantage of our like lower level, the animal instincts when it comes to programming. And you also brought up, the whole COVID-19 stuff, because everything, you pretty much was talking about, we saw, her doing COVID, prime example. And sadly, like we're still seeing the same stuff now. And then too, like the whole order following, freaking aspect of it. You also talked about how the whole medical stuff, how the order followers are not just the cops and militaries, how it's also people in, like the whole pharmaceutical stuff, like corporate stuff, just going along to get along, just following procedure, not asking questions, not thinking for themselves, not thinking about, like what's morally right, not thinking of the consequences of what they are actually doing. And yeah, dependent on the group for survival, like that's what the conditioning has been, like the whole cult mentality, the whole collectivist, mentality. And just always look for the group. Always look external, always look for a mommy or daddy or authority figure, you know, to survive. Always look outside of yourself because you are incapable of surviving. You know, it's like a childish mentality. So they condition us, like with the childish mentality, staying in fear. Then we don't want to get involved, like in doing this kind of work. We don't want to get involved in speaking out because we don't want to be ridiculed. We don't, we fear losing our job. You know, we fear, like losing that status symbol, that seat at the table, when it comes to Christmas dinner, because you posted something online, or because you made a video, a presentation speaking out hell against the slave system. Then people just look the other way.
Yeah. Related to that, I wanted to mention this aspect of the group. So, talk about looking for, related to parental abandonment. We'll get into that in the future. The aspect of wanting a substitute mother and father take care of you, a mommy, daddy, nanny, the state, the government. So you're still a child. But there is an aspect related to the group that's ingrained in our social dynamic. When you think, but it's also ultimately tied to survival, because maybe not in our society as it is now, because it's so decoupled. Our interdependence, our codependence is decoupled from personal relations. All you have to do is be able to perform a job to get money, and then you can exchange for things in order to survive. So it still relates, but not as strongly in the past. So what I'm getting at is, in order to survive, you had to rely on people around you.
Right.
If you got
Yep.
sick or something, you needed help. So being able to form bonds and connections and relate with people it's still important now, and there's this psychological dynamic is still in place, but it was even stronger in the past due to how the mechanisms for survival were much more, I guess, less fluid or less dynamic, so they were more constrained, and you needed to have people, you need to have connections with people around you for when times got tough. So
Um,
you did you want to say
may,
something?
yeah, may I ask you, like, how long of a past are you talking about? Just so I can understand.
100, 200 years, and before that. So before the economic model got more,
Oh,
I guess,
you mean,
automation and the Industrial Revolution, where things got
do you mean
more.
the barter system? The barter system? Like,
Yeah,
I would
like there
exchange
could have been
rice for
money.
your.
Yeah, but there could have been
Okay.
money before, afterwards. Like you could go as far back as the barter system, but you could have money like
Hmm.
gold coins or silver coins. You could go back to the Roman times, like 2,000 years ago.
Hmm.
It's not based on having money or not. It's based on the the way our world works now is, as I just mentioned, you can just go get a job. You don't have to
Yeah.
have friends. You don't have to have anybody in your life, as long as you have a job and you can
Right.
save up money. And if you get
Hmm.
sick, you have the money you saved up, or you can pay
Yeah.
into an insurance and you can be taken care of. These things were not as available or very restricted
Oh,
for adoption or to be inclusive in those mechanisms in the past. So if you lost your job, there wasn't insurance. Um, you had to have people. You had to rely more on people. Now we're in a codependence, but more of a self-reliant kind of way,
hmm.
where you don't need to be as dependent on other people. So we're codependent because we don't make everything ourselves. We
Yeah.
just buy things that other people make, and they sell it so that they can have money to buy other things that you could make, and
Mm.
then you sell it. So we have
So,
this more fluid
yeah, the
codependence.
money
It's not as
circulates.
constrained. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to add 2 points to this dependency that you're talking about and how good practices are condoned. And, it's like, one point is everything is so extra expensive. And, the government is of industrialists and businessmen, and they're not thinking about middleman or people who are like at the bottom of the pyramid, because they want to maintain their position. That's why the inflation is just rising and rising. And if there is a doctor, I'm not talking about COVID. I mean, COVID, everybody got to know the real face of medical industry. But I'm talking about at a personal level. Like, even when I go to different doctors, for example, if someone in my family is diabetic, so I've taken them to several doctors, okay? And will you believe that I had to check with 20 other people just to make sure that the person is right? I was not afraid about spending money. I was more afraid that this person is going to experiment for a couple of months in order to just churn more money out of you. That was a personal experience. Then there was this another case, just in our society, the particular clinic that is, that guy could have given the dose for cold in one go, but he chose not to. He made sure that you visited twice and thrice, and then he crushed the very tablet he gave you so that you could not buy it on your own, which was three times lesser the cost, you see. So instead of trying to make sure that I will get you well and you will get me 20 more references, they're thinking, hey, don't let this one get away, try to get as much money as possible. Again, one of my family members, I took them to hospital, and this particular doctor was adamant that I get all the tests done from that medical center itself, from that hospital itself, and that would have costed me easily around 10 grand. But I checked outside and I got to know that I could get it around 3,000. So that was the difference. And he was constantly trying to, divert me to the fact that, oh, outside is going to be this and outside is going to be that. And I'm like, I'm sure. And you won't believe, I was talking in a club somewhere, anonymous app, and they said that in the hospitals, you would not believe they have their own targets. The MD has a target. He needs to get a business of 1 lakh something. The psychologist they hired, the psychiatrist, the diabetologist, different kind of doctors. Everybody has a target. The one who does X-ray for a living, he has a target to achieve. They forced someone in my family during COVID time to get an MRI, and that costed 20 grand, and nothing was worthy of that MRI. You see, so these practices are good practices, are condoned for sure. Now, set aside medical industry. I told you I wanted to give you two examples. One was that, and I'm speaking purely from personal experience. And secondly is in corporate jobs, wherever you go, a $5 pillow is being sold for 80 goddamn dollars. Where is that normal bloke going to get $80 for that set of pillows? It's just cotton and some wrap around, and you're selling it for $80. That's staggering money. So I'm saying all is supported. You understand? See, it's sustained diversification. It is sustained, whatever this is. And it's just the gap is, instead of minimizing, it's expanding. The poor is getting poorer, the rich is getting richer. It is sustained disaster in a very controlled manner. How you demolish a building, it's like that. When you go to work, okay, there are several industries here, I'm sure you're aware of. There's something called travel industry, okay? So they cater to different airlines like American Airlines, Delta, blah blah. And there's something called markup, which should not be ideally more than $25, but then they end up charging you $2,000 over and above the main ticket price, because they've got to make money. And basis that, incentives are set in the company. So you see, bad practices are there, but they are supported. You see, I would gladly tell the truth, but nobody's supporting me. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. The other person apart from Chris, sir, the
Brandon.
other,
Yeah,
Brandon.
Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon, sir. So when Brandon, sir, said that, you know, you will be criticized, you would be ridiculed, you'll be cornered, and you will lose people. They would not want to be jailed up with someone who's like rebellious or has a mind of their own. Nobody likes those. But if only kind of people that we are, or we believe in the principles, if only we are supported, I am 100% sure we will see a different world tomorrow morning. But if only everybody comes together. I cannot do it on my own. I have a family to run. So even if I condone those practices, you are absolutely 100% right. I have to follow because I will not be getting the money. And money is everything. So, yes, that was my share. Sorry for the blabber.
All good. I find you don't have your accent that you used to have like a month or two ago. That accent, your Indian accent when you speak English, is like it's very diminished compared to what it was.
You see, you are so infectious, Chris, sir, that because I am talking to you, I have adapted to this demeanor. I mean, if you would hear me in the beginning of this video, it is your impact that I'm now speaking in a very calm way. Someone who actually knows me in real life, they would not believe it's me talking. I don't have this much patience or, calm demeanor, but you're so infectious. Your good nature is so infectious. See, I'm just adapting. So, and I already told you my fancy for English language, right? Since I was a kid, I have had that. You know, I've watched all the sitcoms and multiple. Oh, sorry, I'm straying away. My bad.
Yeah, I'm sure you could talk for hours and go from one tangent to the other and just keep going and going and going. Thank you for the kind words, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I noticed that the that typical Indian, accent of talking English has gone away a lot. But what you're talking about is true. It's in the States too. Um, I don't know about Canada. We have a shit healthcare system that's paid involuntarily through taxes. But in the States they've done like audits or whatever, and it's like you're paying so much for a tool that doesn't cost that much, and it's just a huge markup for the I guess the middlemen relative to the manufacturers to sell to the hospitals, and then that goes on to the patients and everyone, the customers. But all this stuff that you were talking about, the underlying problem is people aren't moral, and that's why they're doing this. That's why they follow the quotas. That's why there are people above them setting quotas. This is all Satanism. It's all what we're talking about. Ego is the god themselves. They're not into the more organized and darker aspects of Satanism, but all of that is driven by this drive for the I, the self, above morality. And it just goes darker and darker. The more you put the I above morality in deeper ways, the more it goes darker into, everyone's in that egotism and moral relativism. That's pretty much everyone. And then you get into that social Darwinism. Then eventually you get into eugenics of wanting to decide who lives and who dies. But in general, everyone's in that egoic mindset of, well, it's about me and what I need, and what I need is money, and that goes above morality. So that's what corrupts everyone. Again, that's just making our case for us. The importance of doing the great work is the pinnacle, as I keep referring to it. There's a bunch of other stuff as you can do as part of the great work, and there's level 1 and 2 as I refer to it. 1 is the effects, knowing about the problem so that you can care about the higher level of the great work, which is the solution, and that's how to get rid of the problem, and that deals with these peripherals of self-knowledge and shadow work and understanding ourselves. But the pinnacle, the most important part, is that moral truth, that moral knowledge, objective morality that's needs to be propagated so that people can take it in and remake themselves into a higher, better, truer version of themselves that they can be. And it's that's where we are, sadly. Is there's all these cases, all these experiences and anecdotal evidence that people can bring forth, and real solid evidence about how corrupt our world is, how corrupt individuals are, how they've debased themselves, how they're living as a lower, falser, unrealer potential version of themselves than what they can be. And it's all driven by these fears of not having this thing that they want, which is in a lot of cases money, which is why Passio refers to it as that's the overarching religion is money. Money is your god, like in They Live. That's your god, and that's how people treat it. They do whatever, maybe not anything, but they do a lot of stuff for money that if they were moral beings they wouldn't do. So that's what's dictating them, dictating their choices, and what drives them is money, instead of what driving them being these higher principles, higher minded principles like objective morality. If you guys want to go around, say something else, and we'll end it there for today, for this week.
Sure. Since you brought up the money aspect, you try to serve two masters. You try to serve freaking mammon, because that's what you are, trying to get for all the time. That's pretty much what you worship. But you say you may be serving, God or, hell Jehovah or, hell whatever, like insert whatever flavor. Um, yeah, so it keeps you in that schism because you end up chasing something that's an illusion because the money's not real. Um, it's not real. It's just a belief. So trying to serve two masters, what can't be, which can't be done. Um, how you just keep pulling yourself, you know, stuck in the schism. So I'll close it on that. Thanks for joining us, Fiona. Um,
Yes, my pleasure entirely. Lovely talking to you, Brandon, sir,
yeah.
and Chris, sir.
Hey, when you was talking about those doctors, I was like, man, she's talking about the doctors held it over here inside the states. So, but yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I really wish, I wish that everybody would come together. You would not believe the only reason I would not speak up because nobody would back me up. That's it. If somebody would back me, I would raise my voice. I would make a difference. But we are not backed up. What kind of guys are backed up? What kind of girls are backed up who are into shady practices, who are willing to lie for a buck? You know, they are promoted, they are given certificates, perks. So it's just sad. I wish there was a change. I wish.
Yeah, the importance of speaking, not necessarily directly to others, but the more content that we can make about important quality aspects of truth can help to drown out all the nonsense bullshit that isn't
Yes, sir.
helping people towards that end, and then more people could be willing to, like you say, be a backup and back up other people who are speaking out in public for certain situations. And in that case, it could be true. You speak
Mhm.
up, and maybe there's security and they'll beat you down. But there might be 10 people who are thinking the same way. This is just hypothetical that could be true. In that situation, there could be 10 other people and they're thinking the same way, so they're not speaking up. And then when one person does, the other person does, and then another person realizes there's other people there, and then more people start speaking up. And then maybe those 10 people will get beaten by the security, with their batons or whatever.
Mhm.
But maybe not. And then maybe even more people will think about it and be like, hey, yeah, with these guys. Anyways, it could snowball. It could not. It could backfire. But yes, we all want to. Now, that's part of that courage, even if you're alone. If you don't have much to lose, um, for yourself, if you're alone, if you're, um, I'm just thinking like in my case, I have a lot of people who depend on me as
Oh,
being the breadwinner for the family. So
yes, sir.
I don't live in somewhere where it's as restricted as maybe India or other countries where there
Yes,
could
sir.
be severe repercussions where they could just kidnap you and put you in jail and then your whole family's screwed.
Actually, for real. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, for real.
So yeah, there's always things to weigh. There's advantages to being solo in terms of not having other people depending on you for survival and responsibilities where you can be more I guess take more risks in how you're going to challenge or try to oppose authority. Yeah, I'll leave it on those thoughts where you can
Yes,
do
very.
things differently and we all make choices. And yeah, the important one is to get people to become more aware of objective morality, because that's the only way we're getting out of this. Not even objecting to, say, you're like Hillary Clinton is speaking at some thing and you're going to be like, Clinton body count, or you're going to say, what about this, or what about this, or you let a rapist go off when you were
Yeah.
in your 30s or whatever. That was one of your clients. Or like, you can bring out all these effects things, and
Mm-hmm.
people don't, the bad people don't want you to talk about them or whatever's happening in your community or something. There's X bad effect is happening and you're going to talk about it, and then they're going to like hate you and then send the police after you or something. Like that's just going to keep going on and on and on. Even if you address one thing, there's another corrupt motherfucker who's going to come up and he's going to do something else. And it's why understanding objective morality. And then when you have people that understand, a certain amount of people who understand objective morality and are ready to unite together, then you can have actually a strong force that can act in that common unison to actually get things done and then truly have each other's back. Like, I think I've talked about it before. It might have been in my Law of Freedom where, you can have everyone backing each other so that you can actually engage in self-defense where, like, so you have police forces in certain areas and they outnumber you. But if you outnumber them and people in surrounding towns, when something bad happens and it's the authority versus one or a few individuals there, if everyone drives in and then you outnumber them, then you take them down. This is a hypothetical thing about where we can get to. But all that takes that foundation of morality to then be able to unite morally, to then combat the immorality through numbers and actual physical force and physical defense when they come at one of us, so to speak. And that's the advantage of being more local and people around you. But yeah, anyways, it was just something I was thinking of as where we could envision things could change and how we could get out of this. It's all based on objective morality. If we don't have that, we're not really going anywhere. We're just gonna revolve.
Yep.
A revolution, the American Revolution, made things better, and then it's revolve.
If you don't have morality, you have shit.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks, guys and gals. Thank you, Fiona, for coming in. Always a pleasure to have you come by anytime and voice your voice. And we'll be back next week. That is the 26th, I think it is.
Okay,
and,
yes, sir.
We'll be talking about excuses part 3. We'll continue with excuses some more.
Yes, sir.
So have a good evening, good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Take care.
Yes, sir.